Hey everyone, Kendra here for another episode of Let's Talk. Of course, I can't do this show alone, so I brought along my friends Jaguar Gator 9 and PJ-Roc to the show. And Colin, freaking fracking good Tuesday to you. Tom Grossi wins Fan of the Year. Let's get started with NFL honors. Were you surprised that Tom won that award?
Not the slightest bit. No, the amount of good work he's done for the community, the amount of people he's brought together. Once he went on that stadium tour and raised $500,000 for St. Jude's and all the charitable things he's done. Now, this was a culmination of years and years of hard work. I'm not even remotely surprised, and I'm so happy for him. No one deserves it more than he does, really.
Very cool. Any surprises out of NFL honors? I know you did a couple of snub videos last week. Um, Other than the snubs out of the Hall of Fame, what was your thoughts on the awards overall?
There's two really besides Hall of Fame that I was very confused with. Offensive Player of the Year, obviously no problem with McCaffrey winning. He deserved it. I don't know how
Right.
Travis Etienne got a vote. I have no clue how Travis Etienne got a third place vote. That was the most
Uh,
backwards.
Must have
Like,
been a Jags fan just saying, "Hey, I'm going to throw this out there."
he wasn't even a top three running back, let alone a top three offensive player. I mean, someone said in their mind, okay, we're going to put McCaffrey as the best offensive player, Tyreek is number two. We're going to say Etienne had a better season than CeeDee Lamb, Amara St. Brown, Raheem Mostert, Lamar Jackson. Someone thought that. Someone actually thought that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
what on earth are you thinking? The other one that didn't shock me, but I'm disappointed. The comeback player of the year. Um, I don't
I
get the
totally
logic
agree
employed.
with you on that.
I don't get the logic employed. I
Flacco
look,
flat
Lamar,
out said
yeah,
he didn't want it,
yeah.
and yet he still won it.
I still won. Like, I get that there's no set criteria for comeback player of the year. If you want to say that Hamlin didn't play a lot this season, that's your prerogative, I guess. Like, that's if you want to say, okay, to win comeback player of the year, you have to come back from something and play well. I get that. There's no set criteria. What I
Right.
don't get is people that had him second or third on the ballot. If you left him off the ballot entirely, I get it. I get it. But if you're putting him on the ballot, he's got to be first. If you put him on your
Yeah.
ballot, you're saying, okay, he overcame death, he overcame adversity, and for that reason, he's comeback player of the year. I don't know how you say, okay, well, we're gonna give him. I'm gonna vote for him as second or third, but I'm not gonna put him first. I don't get like
Exactly.
what set of criteria you're using. The other thing that made no sense with that is that John Mitchie got no votes. He came back from leukemia. He actually played. No votes. Calvin Ridley got a vote for coming back from a bad parlay. Like it's backwards. They need a set criteria because the award's a joke.
Yeah, and it seems like it's other than a handful of times, it's kind of the quarterback secondary award.
Yeah, and shouldn't be.
So
Like
right.
I don't get how coming back from bad performance should mean comeback player of the year. But then again, the NFL doesn't have set criteria, so it's
Yeah.
really five different awards bottled into one for no real reason.
Yeah. Hall of Fame snubs. I saw the Chargers player that you did a video on. Any others that you were surprised with?
Yeah, I was really I mean Hall of Fame snubs, like in terms of the final five, I didn't have a problem with the final five at all. Like they're all deserving. Everyone that made the final 15 besides Rodney Harrison is deserving. I was disappointed that Art Powell and Buddy Parker didn't get in because there are so many worthy candidates that we have lost throughout time. And
Right.
there should be three senior guys getting in every single year. And the fact that the voters said, no, we're not going to take your recommendation, I thought that was shameful. I really thought that was shameful. And the fact that you had a guy from the 60s not get in who deserves it, and a guy from the 50s who didn't get in that deserves it, and all five guys that made it this year were 21st century guys. I
Right.
don't think that I just don't think the committee is honoring the older players the way that they should. I mean, if the
Right.
Hall of Fame says you belong in the Hall of Fame, the voters are like, no, no, it just doesn't make sense because there's so many guys that could have gone that spot besides our pal. If you didn't want to give it, Ken Anderson would have gone in for sure. Roger Craig would have gone in for sure. Uh, Lamar Parrish would have gone in for sure, and they're still waiting their turn. Mark Espino would have gone in for sure. They're all waiting their turn,
Right.
and
What
to not have the maximum number of guys get in when you could have done that, it's ridiculous.
yeah. What do you think of Houston finally getting a Hall of Famer?
besides Ed Reed.
Right.
Half season he played there. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm happy for Andre. He was a beast, absolute beast. I had a feeling he was Final 10 the last 2 years, so I had a feeling he was going to be the first one in the logjam to get through. The only thing
Right.
I'll say is that I thought Andre Johnson and Steve Smith had very similar careers, very good. I always pair the two of them together. I don't know how Steve Smith didn't make top 15 finalists, but Andre Johnson's in the Hall. I think they both deserve to be in. I just don't get how the committee sees one that much higher over the other. But Andre was a phenomenal player. Um, I had a lot of
Well,
respect for the Jaguars
Andre
fans.
played on on a pretty bad Texans team
Yeah,
too, and
yeah,
to put up those kind of numbers
yeah,
in Houston at that time
yeah.
was a little harder.
Yeah. Steve Smith had
Num-
Jimmy Clausen for a season though. So
number 80, right?
yep. Ready.
So
Other Texans you can see in the next few years,
I mean, JJ Watt's gonna be first ballot. JJ Watt will be first ballot. That'll be a 5-second discussion.
right?
Other than him, in the next few years, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think there's anyone that I could see. Leckler has a shot, I guess, but punters usually take a while. I mean, Ray Guy is the greatest of all time, and he took 35 years or so to get in. So
Wow.
Leckler's got to wait a bit. But other than him, I don't think we're going to see any Texan for a while, besides JJ Watt.
Very cool. PJ, your thoughts on any of the NFL honors that surprised you?
as far as surprises, I wouldn't say that I was particularly surprised. I thought um, there was nobody that was going to unseat Lamar or to prevent Lamar from getting the MVP honors. Um, he led the Ravens to an NFL best 13-4 record. Ranked in the top 10 this season in QBR, 64.7 yards per pass attempt. He's a phenomenal specimen, and very, very happy for Lamar. As you guys know, so much controversy with this contract, and are they going to pay him? Were they going to pay him? Was he going to end up in Baltimore? Is that where he was going to make his home? Very, very happy for Lamar. He choked at the end, but yeah, no, I completely agree with Christian McCaffrey as Offensive Player of the Year. The numbers don't lie. Myles Garrett. So no, I didn't know much about the fan of the year. I'm learning that from you guys. Didn't really follow that piece of the action that much. CJ Stroud. No, I thought they pretty much got it right. The defensive rookie of the year, another Houston product there. Yeah, I'm in agreement with all of it. Coach of the year, I thought Kevin was very deserving, but I could have seen. I think there were at least two or three coaches that could have that it could have took home that honor. But I thought they got it right when you look at Detroit's. I'm sorry, Cleveland's. Yeah, where they came
Cleveland's
from.
quarterback, Cleveland's quarterback situation kind of gave that to him, and I think Colin, you had called it too that he was going to win that award, right?
11-6.
Yeah. I think it was between Stefanski and Ryans, and I think the voters looked at that game they played on Christmas Eve, and I think that was the decider. It's funny because I thought I would have given it to Stefanski, I would have given it to Will Anderson, and I would have given it to Myles Garrett, and I thought they were going to go Ryans, TJ Watt, and Carter, but I was like, I think that's how they're going to go, but I would give it to the other three, and I think they got it right in that regard. I think the voters. The only one I don't agree with, I don't think Jim Schwartz should have won Assistant Coach of the Year, but other than that, I have no problem with any of the awards. So they got it pretty much right. Besides,
that was one that I don't pay enough attention to assistant coaches, so
Me either, yeah. But Colin does.
yeah.
I mean, Cleveland became the first team since 1987. I did not think that this stat was ever going to be broken. The first team since 1987 to start 5 different quarterbacks. Is that crazy?
Yeah. In
It's
87, they
insane.
had to because of the strike. In 87,
Well,
they had to.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
You
yeah,
throw out the 2 strike years and yeah, no one's ever done it. It's unheard of what Cleveland did only because they had to. They were literally they literally pulled quarterbacks off the couch to play. So,
Yeah. I think you
um,
can't say, like, if you have to say, okay, MVP's quarterback award, all these awards are quarterback award. This is a quarterback driven league. And a guy makes the playoffs and does that with 5 different quarterbacks. I mean, really 4. I mean, they didn't have to play Driscoll the final game of the season. They have the spot locked up, and that's a testament to him. But
right.
the guy makes the playoffs and does that with 5 different quarterbacks on a team that wasn't expected to make the playoffs in the first place. Yeah, I think he deserved the award.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
and if you wanted to, there is one award I think they should add, and that's a comeback team of the year. But there's so many variables with the team as a whole. But you got to say Houston was the team that came out of the dead to do what they did. Uh, Brand new head coach and
Yeah.
rookie quarterback and all of that. No one expected Houston to do anything. I mean, I think I told Colin early in the season I'd be surprised if they won 5 games, and then they ended up winning the division,
Yeah.
much to his chagrin.
It wasn't Tennessee or anything. That's all I care about. Nothing
Yeah.
against Houston.
Yeah, we both have hatred towards Tennessee and the Colts. So, yeah. Let's talk about the opening of the Super Bowl. Reba does the national anthem, and I forget her name for what they called the Black national anthem, I guess.
I think it was
Yeah.
yeah.
Your thoughts on the opening ceremonies of the Super Bowl?
Colin, why don't you take that?
All right. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, I thought Reba, nothing shocked me with that. I mean, I did a video on my news channel predicting the anthem, the over-under, and I was like, okay, because the Chiefs are in the game, she's going to do something different with the ending because the Chiefs yell out Chiefs during the end over Brave.
Yeah.
And it's going to be musical accompaniment because there always is ever since Rock Nation got the music rights. So I was like, I'm guessing this can be 135, and it was 135 on the dot. So it didn't compare to Chris Stapleton, what he did last year. I thought that was one of the top 3 renditions of the anthem ever at a Super Bowl. But it was still fine. I thought Post Malone was fine. I thought Andre Day was fine. Nothing really too memorable from the opening ceremonies, but nothing egregiously bad like Alicia Keys at Super Bowl 47 or
Christina
Christina Aguilera at
Aguilera.
Super Bowl 45. Nothing egregious in that regard.
I think you hit it. They got a well-seasoned performer in Reba to get up there and to do her thing, and she was flawless. I mean, I'm not gonna. That's a tough environment. So all kinds of technical stuff can go wrong, and sometimes go wrong. Sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't. I thought, like you said, Colin, they didn't make any gaffes here. And I think that's a win.
Mm-hmm. That's all you need. That's all you need.
I felt she, and as you've said, Colin, in the past, normally 90 seconds is her national anthem. And there was a couple of spots in it that is like, she's dragging it to work that music because she doesn't normally do it with music. And it did feel like she was dragging in a couple of spots just to make sure she ended with the music.
Yeah. I was talking with my friends before the anthem, because we were talking about the over under, and the moment the musical accompaniment started, because I had a stopwatch. And the moment the musical accompaniment started, I was like, I want the over wins. The over one. The moment it happened, because I knew musical accompaniment, yeah, she's going over.
Yeah.
There's no way she doesn't.
No, Reba was great.
So many times it's like when there's music accompaniment, it's like somebody higher up says, "Oh, the music's got to be the spotlight," and sometimes the vocalist needs to be the spotlight, and that's how I feel about Reba.
Yeah.
Um, the game itself, we all know the Chiefs won in overtime. Um, let's we'll touch on some of the decisions in a bit, but halftime show, Usher. Colin, what's your thoughts?
Top five all time. Top five halftime show all time. I had so much fun with that one. There were no dull moments. That's the tough part with the halftime show. Usually, even a lot of the great halftime shows have moments where it's like, okay, this part's dragging a bit. There wasn't any like that. I thought the pacing was very good. Usher played all his hits, especially compared to last year with Rihanna. I thought this was a big improvement. The skates, the choreography, the marching band, the arrangements of some of the songs, the guest stars, the transitions between the songs, like the 7 o'clock, and then Get Low at the very end of the like everything
Yeah.
worked. Everything worked perfectly with this show. And I would put it in my top five. I've watched it a few times already, and my early reaction is that I would probably put it probably at five. I mean, I got U2 at one because of just the historical aspect, and just it was perfect. Katy Perry at
Right.
two. I got Prince at three. I got the Super Bowl 56 show with Dre and Snoop Dogg and those guys at four, and I've got this at five. I thought they did a very good job.
Yeah. Again, I think Usher nailed the opening. Because a lot of times, if you don't open right or something goes wrong right there at the very beginning, it tends to kind of throw things off. I thought it was an almost flawless performance. One, the costumes I just thought were out of here. The eclectic nature of it all, the feathers, just the different outfits, the somersaults, just a lot of activity. They filled up the screen. They really did. There were no empty spots on the screen. I thought it was well balanced. Whoever directed this thing, um, obviously they understood that this thing is being televised and it has to be framed properly. So I thought the framing was beautiful. I thought Usher's performance was, I would agree with Colin. I would definitely say top five. I want to watch it. I've only watched it 2 times. I want to watch it again to see whether or not I would put that performance, the whole stagecraft, the whole thing, whether it really is going to live in my top five. But for now, I'm agreeing with Colin. The pace, like you said, this thing really moved.
Yeah.
Very dynamic. And again, those roller skates, please. And if you know anything about Atlanta hip hop, R&B type stuff, he had everybody there that was relevant to that kind of music during its heyday. Ludacris
Yeah.
came out, who was huge. Um, I just thought it was. I mean, I just thought it was incredible. Alicia Keys was stunning in red, with that alien-looking piano. And you guys have seen some of the controversy about Usher hugging her from behind. Alicia's married to a very famous producer, Swiss Beats, and he didn't think anything of it. Overall, I agree, Colin. Top five performance. I thought it was nearly flawless, Taz.
Yeah, the like you said, the fact that they filled the screen, they filled it was so there was so much going on. It felt very it was almost like they realized last year there just wasn't enough going on, that this year they amped it up, and it was a great performance.
The bar is
Um,
set pretty low.
Yeah,
the
Um,
bar was set
yeah.
pretty
It didn't
low.
help that Rihanna. It was a choreography based show last year with Rihanna, but she couldn't move because she was pregnant.
right.
So
Right.
I
like
just
Usher took
question
it
the
up like
whole.
10,000 notches.
I don't want anybody to come after me or anything, but I don't know that I would have personally selected Rihanna for last year's show. Maybe they didn't. And I'm not knocking her pregnancy thing. That's not, it was a Super Bowl halftime show performance. And people, um, yeah, I don't know if I personally would have gone that route.
Especially because she hadn't performed in like 5 years. I mean, it's not like she was touring or like.
And it showed. It showed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Usher, I mean, Usher's got millions of fans. Between Usher and then all the shots of Taylor Swift throughout the show. Yeah, I think CBS had a great lineup of ready to go celebrity moments in that show.
Colin, have you guys seen the numbers on the show yet? The Nielsen numbers, the ratings?
Crazy. Was it 129 million for Usher alone? I think 200 million watched it at any point.
Wow.
So you had 2/3 of the country at some point tune into the Super Bowl.
And
Wow.
is this the first time it's been broadcast on basically I want to say three networks, but
Yeah, for
two networks in a streaming service?
Yeah, I mean, because you have English language, Spanish language, and then streaming, and then Nickelodeon. They haven't released the Nickelodeon numbers, but they said across all platforms. So I'm assuming that includes Nickelodeon.
Let me ask you guys this.
I'm waiting on your I'm waiting on your review of the Nickelodeon
I
broadcast.
still need to find the broadcast.
When do we see this thing on YouTube? How far are we away from them broadcasting this thing?
Technically, we already have.
Oh, have we?
YouTube TV. I mean, YouTube TV is the fourth largest cable company in the nation. YouTube has the rights to air it, just not on the.
So let me
YouTube
clarify my question then.
YouTube platform.
Like just not over the air. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Never. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't, because the problem is that you just need the internet you just need one bad signal. You need the internet to go out, and I think rural America it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Bars would also throw a fit over that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wi-Fi would be ridiculously slow. I'm not sure I don't think there's any place that has the capability, the network capability, to have 200 million people watching at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what the biggest ever live event that was broadcast on YouTube. I'd have to research that. I think a little bit differently. I think maybe not in the next couple of years, but as you guys know, regarding bandwidth, regarding technology, how quickly technology is evolving as far as broadcasting and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't put it past the NFL or the NBA to just go directly. Obviously, they got to have partners, and that's where the money comes in, right? And I don't know that it would necessarily be. It would have to be a delay, right? There would have to be some kind of a delay, 5-minute, whatever it is. But there are many.
Typical delay with YouTube's 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you have software that can do low latency broadcasting.
Yeah. That's why I think the sports books wouldn't allow for that to happen.
Yeah.
People like live betting. I think on top of that, also, like if you watched Sunday Ticket on YouTube, they showed like those Zen things. The Zen things took the place of local ads. There's if you put it on YouTube, there's no way to do local ads.
Yeah.
I think the stations would throw a fit over that.
I think that your local stations are going to be the ones that prevent that in the future
from happening.
I mean, you know, Colin, you said that with Amazon getting a playoff game next year, Amazon also broadcasts that on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
So there's already a model for the streaming services to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But Amazon does it right in that if you don't want to pay for Amazon Prime, they give you an out. They give you Twitch to watch it. I don't know. I've never watched it on Twitch. I don't know how the quality is on Twitch, but yeah, they've made a free version of it for those that can't watch on that don't have Prime.
Mhm.
I mean, I have Prime. I know Colin has Prime. Most, what'd you say? 2 out of 3 people have Prime.
Yeah, it's something like that. I think it's like 180 million. It's some ridiculous.
Some
Yeah.
ridiculous number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
So yeah, there's precedence there for it to happen. CBS got to stream it on Paramount Plus this year, along with using Nickelodeon and then over the air CBS. I think you're going to see it evolve beyond what it is what happened this year with it being on multiple platforms. I think eventually you're going to see it always be a streaming service, always be a local, and possibly Nickelodeon getting more of these things, because Nickelodeon knocks it out of the park every year.
Every
well,
time.
what we've seen is a serious progression and the NFL constantly innovating as it relates to getting their product out there. I personally wouldn't put it past them. There's no question that there's going to be some stuff that they need to work out. Um, and yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see them constantly continue to innovate in this space and
Yeah.
define, interesting and different ways of getting this game into people's eyeballs.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room to grow. They're on the right path. But when you go to like internet, you go to streaming services and stuff like that. There's an entire generation that doesn't have smart TVs. There's an entire generation that has no idea how to access that. They just know, okay, flip the TV on, the game's on CBS or Fox or whatnot.
Yep.
There's an entire generation that doesn't know, like they don't know how to work the TV.
Well, and the reason the NFL is going to Nickelodeon and Twitch and all that stuff is they appreciate demographics, and they have people who do nothing but that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting going forward.
Let's talk about commercials during the games. We know FanDuel pulled their fast trickery again. We know Disney Plus basically spent $7 million to run a bunch of words across our screens. What, besides those 2 massive flops, and USA Today hasn't put their numbers out as last I saw. Colin, what what's your best ad of the night? What's your worst ad of the night other than those 2?
So besides those two, I love the Dunkin' Donuts ad with all the Boston celebrities. I think it's a Boston product to get Boston celebrities. It was funny all the way through. My problem with a lot of celebrity cameos is if there's no real purpose to it. It's okay. Here's a celebrity. Here's our product. Buy the product. There's not really a story with a lot of these. This one, there was like a story. It was funny. This felt like an old ad from the 90s, like in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I think the worst for me, you look at just what he gets us tries to do, and you think of how much money they could have spent on like actually helping out people versus blowing $14 million on just still images and trying to spread Christianity, even though everyone knows what Christianity is at this point.
Yeah.
Like, how many people could you have fed? How many churches could you have built? How many like people could you have helped with that
With
$14 million that you
Yeah.
blew on those 2 ads? Like,
Right.
that just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
It goes against the messaging that you're trying to convey.
So where would you put, say, the State Farm ad?
I thought the State Farm ad was pretty good. I thought State Farm was good. I thought the other good ones, I thought the Pluto TV with the Spuds, the couch potatoes. I really like the NFL Sunday Ticket ad. Oh, that was before the game. I also really liked the T-Mobile musical commercial at the very end and Christopher Walken. There weren't really any like terrible like this was I give it like a C. The ads this year, like there were some good ones, but there were a lot of
There were
duds. There was
some
a
duds.
lot of unoriginal. Just here's a celebrity buy our product. It feels like we're trending in the wrong direction, where it's every ad has to have a celebrity cameo.
I heard Starry had an ad, Pepsi's knockoff, rebranded version of Sierra Mist. I missed the ad. I didn't get to see that ad. Your thoughts on, was there a Starry ad? And if so, your thoughts on it?
I don't remember it.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's probably not a good sign. It's probably not a
I
good sign.
know they're one of the Lakers' biggest sponsors, but I don't remember seeing that ad.
That ad.
I
Okay.
believe the most watched spot was Tina Fey's um, for Booking.com.
Booking.com always does really good commercials.
Yeah. So there were cameos by her, her co-stars from 30 Rock. Seeing those guys again. I thought that one was cool. I thought overall they were pretty cool. I mean, $7 million for 30 seconds. It goes up every year, right?
Every year.
Uh, yeah. So I thought the Clydesdale one probably was the creme de la creme. Um, but I thought overall the ads were decent. Yeah.
Colin, how would I forget what grade you gave last year's Super Bowl comparing to this year? Did we get better ads or about the same?
I think we got better, but we're still a long ways to go. Like the cream of the crop for me was like late '90s, early 2000s. I think 2000 Super Bowl 34 was I think the best batch of ads because it was all these .com companies who had no idea what they were doing. They had no rules. There was no focus groups. It was just we're gonna spend money to get our name out there, and we're gonna do whatever we want. And all these ads now are just safe and they're focus group to death and whatnot. I think Super Bowl 34, the late 90s, you had the best batch because there were companies starting to realize, okay, let's advertise at the big game. Let's go bigger. Let's go better. But it wasn't a ton of celebrity cameos. And if there were, it was shocking.
Right.
And they
They
had no
weren't
rules.
those le 90s and 2000s ads. It wasn't like, "Oh, we have to have a celebrity cameo." It's, "Hey, this person's available. Should we invite them to do this and not get offended if they say no?"
Yeah. Like the best one, like one of the most underrated ones was the one from Super Bowl 29 with Jason Alexander. Just
Yeah.
like he was like just he got on the wrong plane and then he just skydived into the stadium and you thought it was actually the broadcast. And he skydived there. I thought that was genius. Like
Yeah.
it was genius. It was also unexpected. You don't expect him to do that. But I think
Uh,
we've seen everything now. We've seen most of the tricks in the book at this point.
Well, with such a
we've all
celebrity-driven culture, I think, Taz, that
yeah, it
you
is.
almost have to have, you know, um, look at Skechers with Snoop, and you would have never associated Skechers with Snoop back in the '90s, and this
Yeah.
brand's been around forever.
Skechers.
Um,
I mean, when I think of Skechers right now, it's retired NFL players doing their ads,
yeah,
you
I
yeah,
still
know.
think of the '90s Nickelodeon game shows. That was what they gave away. If you like the first one out on Legends of the Hidden Temple, that's what
that's right.
they gave away.
Yeah,
That's
you got
right.
Skechers.
Yeah.
Um, Now we all know that commercials drive the broadcast just as much as the halftime show drives the broadcast. But going into overtime, this is only the second Super Bowl to ever go into overtime. 50 being, was it 50 that was the first one, Colin?
51. The
51.
Patriots Falcons, yeah.
Yeah. New rules this year for overtime in playoffs. Your thoughts on how that worked out this year and your thoughts on players saying they were confused?
Yeah, so the rules were different, but it basically played out the same way it did back in 2012 when they first started this. So I don't get how players were necessarily confused because the Niners went down, kicked a field goal, and then the Chiefs scored a touchdown. And it's the same that it was back in 2012 when they first implemented that. Personally, I had no problem with the decision by Shanahan to take the ball first. I look at it like this. If you're the Niners, you stop the Chiefs every drive. They only scored one touchdown all game. They only scored one touchdown before overtime. And that was on a fluke play. It was a punt that went off the guy's leg. So they hadn't really driven down the field on their own accord all game. All you have to do is hold them to 3. And if you hold them to 3, you get the ball a second possession, and it's sudden death at that point.
Sudden death, yeah.
Now, if the rules were if each team gets 1 possession, then each team gets a second possession, no, you kick. If it was like last year's Super Bowl where the Chiefs scored a touchdown every single drive in the second half, besides the very end where they just ran the clock, kick a field goal, yeah, you take the ball second, so you know what you need to do. But under this system, of the way the game was going, I had no problem with it. I really, the math says otherwise, and on top of that, you have to remember that the game regulation ended with the Chiefs going on an 11-play drive or 12-play drive. If you take the ball second, you have to send your defense back on the field. It's tough enough stopping Mahomes. You're going to have to stop him after your defense has been gassed after being on the field for 12 straight plays. They're going to be out for like 24 straight plays at that point.
Right.
It
You're
wouldn't
running
be feasible.
backups by then.
It wouldn't be feasible. So I have no problem with the decision.
Yeah.
McCaffrey said repeatedly after the game, there's no good way to lose a Super Bowl.
No, there's
right?
not.
There's no good way to lose a Super Bowl. And then the questions kept coming at him about his team losing double-digit leads. And then he was like, you know what? We've only lost twice. And it was to Mahomes, arguably, one top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL by the numbers, and once to Tom Brady. So stuff happens. I think Colin gives a great explanation for why Shanahan opted to do what he did. It makes sense, but I think it all goes back to coaching. I don't think that the players on the field, probably on both teams, I just don't think that they had a really good grasp. Well, it's not me thinking. It's like, this is Monday morning quarterbacking, right? I have the benefit of looking at their comments. So It was clear that the organizations did not do a good job. The coaches did not do an effective job as it relates to making sure that everybody understood what was going on as far as the overtime stuff. There's no good way to lose it. They put up a hell of a fight. I personally like these overtime rules.
I like that they added both teams must have a possession regardless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody gets an opportunity to win.
Colin, how long do you think it will be before the NFL goes and says, we're going to play 10 minutes, the full 10 minutes, regardless of how much scoring there is, like the NBA and the NHL do?
I don't think it's ever going to happen. They tried that back in the 90s with NFL Europe, and it didn't really work. I think what we're going to see, I think playoffs is going to say the same, but I think regular season, I think there's going to be an incentive coming up soon. I think within the next 10 years, the rules will change for the regular season to be, okay, we don't want games going past 4:25. We don't want games taking more than 3.5 hours, so you miss the ending of a game. So we're going to do shootout style like XFL or USFL or the UFL, whatever it's called now. They're gonna do it like that. I think that's the next change. But for playoffs, I think it's gonna be like hockey, where they do like a shootout, but for the playoffs they play the way it is now.
Right.
The longer those players are on the field,
the more chance of getting hurt,
and the sloppier it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that the NFL would ever go back to saying, okay, no overtimes in regular season to prevent injury?
Fans wouldn't stand for it.
No. The standings were part of what also makes the NFL so great and easy to understand for the fans is that, okay, an 11-win team gets in over a 10-win team, gets in over a 9-win team, and all that. You look at the standings back when there was no overtime.
There
You
was a
got
lot of
teams with
ties.
multiple ties. You got weird scenarios. You had a scenario back in the 60s where a team had 10 wins and a team had 7, and you had a team with 7 control their own destiny. It was backwards. It was
Yeah.
absolutely backwards.
Yeah.
So they're never going back to that.
The benefit of hindsight.
Yep.
Right. So overall, what would you give the grade of the game played on the field and the coaching from the sidelines? What grades would you give those?
The game itself, I give a B plus. I think the first half was not very good. I think it was a lot like Super Bowl 23, where the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters, very sloppy, very boring game, and then the ending was just incredible.
And you actually did a video about how these two games were so similar.
Yeah. The coaching, I would say, the end of the first half, I had a major problem with the clock management at the end of the first half. I don't know why the Chiefs called a timeout that late. And then I don't know why the Niners didn't try calling timeout, try to get the ball back, steal an extra possession from Mahomes. That one I didn't understand at all. So I'd say coaching-wise, and you had players with confusion with the OT rules and everything. Shanahan didn't give the ball to McCaffrey until the very end of the game, even though it was
That was
working.
confusing.
Yeah, I would. And then obviously Travis Kelce not being on the field for the Isaiah Pacheco fumble. You don't get him involved in the offense in the first half whatsoever. I would say coaching-wise, probably a C. This was not a very well-coached Super Bowl on both sides.
Yeah, what was up with Travis Kelce almost knocking what's his name over, Andy Reid?
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, he should be on the field on every single play unless he needs a breather. He definitely didn't need a breather on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean Kelsey's Mahomes' most reliable receiver when you look at it.
Well, everybody knows that too. And I don't know if that's where Andy's head was, but yeah, coaching. First of all, that Niners defense. I mean, how many times did they get to Patrick in that game?
3 sacks, yeah, 3 sacks.
3 sacks.
Was it only 3?
Only 3, but a lot of pressure, but 3 sacks, yeah.
Yeah, as far as pressure him and getting him out of that pocket and they really had an impact, obviously on his play. They couldn't sustain it, and so for me, that's the issue. Know your personnel. Know who you're dealing with, and you put the ball in Patrick's hands, and you give him a shot to go out there and do his thing. He's going to figure it out at some point. I mean, that's his history. He's shown that consistently. But yeah, I think I hate to blame Shanahan for the outcome of this, but I don't know how you cannot put most of the blame on this loss in his lap.
Yeah, it's a very different game if Dre Greenlaw doesn't get hurt on that fluke play. It's a very different game.
That's very true.
The moment he went down, everything changed with the Chiefs' offense moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Colin, you did a video on a bizarre incident that happened after Super Bowl 37.
37, yeah.
With a certain band we're going to talk about next. Bon Jovi was asked to do It's My Life after not 1, but 3 different broadcasts that year.
All NFL, yeah.
All NFL broadcasts. It's My Life was played after the game was over. Or it was played after the game was over on ABC. It was for a montage of highlights, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you explain a little about what that entailed, why they were asked to do it, and then we'll transition into talking about our different opinions of Bon Jovi. I know they're one of your favorite bands. They're one of my favorite bands. PJ might not know quite as much about them, but why don't we talk a little bit about those guys?
Yeah, so for that year, for whatever reason, the NFL decided, we're going to have Bon Jovi play the pregame show before the kickoff game. We're going to have him do It's My Life and then a song off their new album every day. And they did that. And then they did the Thanksgiving halftime show with the Lions to the same exact set list. And then they did the Super Bowl after that with the same exact set list. So it made no sense because the goal for any network is for you to stay tuned in. That's the goal for every network is the lead out program
after the game.
Yeah, the lead out program is like one of the most viewed non-NFL broadcasts of the entire year. You have to nail that lead out program. And the longer you have a post-game show, the less and less eyeballs going to be on the lead out program because more people are going to be turning off their TV. They're going to be leaving the parties by that
They're
point.
tired, man, after drinking and smoking.
Especially when you have East Coast, that it didn't end until late.
Yeah, because there were a lot of turnovers second, a lot of scoring.
Yep.
So usually a post-game show is about 30 minutes because they do the trophy ceremony and everything. This one was like 45 minutes. And it already ended late. So the lead-out program, it was not a great game. So the lead-out program aired 45 minutes after kickoff or after the game ended, and it was like the lowest rated lead-out program ever.
Hence, it was never done again.
Never done again. Never done again. They never did a post-game concert afterwards. And I think a post-game concert would work if it was actually like production levels of a halftime show or if it was a new artist and not, okay, if you're an NFL fan, you care about the post-game show, you want to see the trophy ceremony, but you've seen Bon Jovi do this over and over again. You don't even see him do it again. It's the same thing.
It's almost like you could do it if you treated it as your lead out show.
Right. And it's not like for certain artists, the performances are different. Like Lady Gaga can do the same song 3 different times. And
3 different ways.
3 different performances, 3 different ways. I mean, we saw that with Shallow at the Grammys versus how she did at the Oscars. Bon Jovi, it's Bon Jovi. You're getting the same thing every time. You're not getting choreography. You're not getting like
guitar solo.
Yep. It's the same exact thing. So I don't know what they were thinking. And then they also, I need to find the footage of it, but they also did a magic trick with Penn and Teller afterwards. I need to get the footage of that. I cannot find the footage anywhere of that, but apparently there was a magic trick after that they also did in that post-game show, just to make it as long as possible without ever getting to the lead-up program.
Yeah. When did you get into Bon Jovi?
Oh man. I mean, I grew up in New York. So when you grow up Long Island around that Jersey area, you are a Bon Jovi fan the moment you're born. I would say I got into them probably around 2007, 2008. I mean, You Get a Little Bad Name is one of my all-time favorite songs. It was always like one of my go-tos. And I saw them live for the first time. I've seen them live 3 times, but I saw them live for the first time in May of 2010. It was the first set of shows, the first set of events at MetLife Stadium when that opened up. And they played for 3 hours there, and I became a fan for life. I mean, I was already a huge fan, but I became a fan for life at that point.
For me, I'd have to say Slippery When Wet album was probably when I got introduced to them. But It's My Life probably is what made me realize, hey, these guys aren't done. And, everything from, You Give Love a Bad Name to even their newer stuff. I love the song that John wrote during the pandemic. I love Who Says You Can't Go Home, especially the version with Jennifer Nettles. And they've always been able to crank out these hits, and the album that Who Says You Can't Go Home on, with the red cover with the smirk, smiley face, I think that's probably my favorite album of theirs. Second, only very closely followed by Slippery When Wet.
I would probably say my favorite one. I mean, I love how they've evolved their sound over the years. Like, there's so many hair metal bands that just died out once the early 90s rolled around. And they were able to keep going by evolving their sound, but they did it in an authentic way. I think my favorite one by far, I think, is New Jersey. New Jersey is by far my favorite one by them. I think Blood on Blood is one of their best songs. And 99 in the Shade is the best gem that they have that they like never play. It wasn't a single or anything like that, but I think 99 in the Shade is great. I'll Be There For You is one of the best power ballads ever written.
Yeah,
One of the best
I
hair metal
agree with
ballads ever written. And I thought Slippery When Wet's a great album, but I think New Jersey had no filler on that one. I think that was a near flawless album for them.
and him and Richie wrote most of those songs,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Your thoughts? I mean, obviously they're not touring with Richie anymore. Do you think they sound the same with or without Richie?
I mean, I think Phil X is very good. I think Richie is better, but I think Phil X is very good. I mean, Richie's one of the all-time greatest guitarists. The problem right now is just John's voice is shot. Unfortunately, right. John's voice is a shell of what it used to be. He can't hit those notes anymore. He doesn't sound that good anymore.
Yeah. John also released a couple of solo albums, very good. The unofficial Young Guns soundtrack that gave us some great songs that he always played during Bon Jovi sets. What would you say was his best song off his solo career?
It's a generic answer, but I gotta go Blaze of Glory. I gotta go Blaze of Glory. I mean that's one that sounds like a band, like a Bon Jovi song.
Yeah, when I think of Bon Jovi, I think of anthems. I think of Big Hair.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about their discography. I know that Bon Jovi was a solo artist, if you will, guy trying to make it. They're from Sayreville, New Jersey. They got together in '83, and obviously got their name from the lead singer. I would have loved to have. Do you guys know if there's a rockumentary on them? I believe there is, and I may have seen it once.
There's a Behind the Music with on that aired a while ago. It was like an hour-long VH1.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure I've seen.
And CMT's done a Crossroads for them.
Okay.
So.
And interestingly enough, Bon Jovi himself was discovered by a disc jockey at a local radio station. Back when DJs had some kind of power and influence.
Before I Heart Radio.
Right.
Before I Heart came on.
Yeah. And then he brought on, of course, Richie on guitar, Alec on bass, Tico Torres on drums. For me, it was just when I hear Bon Jovi, when I heard them back in the day, to me, they were, I mean, this was 84, right? 83, 84. Right. These guys were what the antithesis, is that the right word, of what I was listening to at the time. But it really grabbed me. The big sound, the anthems is what really grabbed me. So Slippery When Wet came out when? 84?
86? I think 86 was the first single that got released.
Bon Jovi came out in 84, I think it was.
Yeah. Because they released 2 albums before, then they got Desperate Child. They didn't have a whole lot of success. I mean, Runaway was a big hit, but
Slippery When Wet was kind of the album that did it for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because they got Desperate Child to write a lot of the songs, help them out, and from there they took off.
Living on a Prayer.
And obviously the cover created a lot of controversy, the original cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, controversy drives sales. So I think there's a lot of people out there that might have got lucky and got the original, but most people have the edited version that's just basically asphalt.
So Colin, you've seen these guys live on stage. I know that they are known for their live performances. I mean, did they rock your world?
They were great. That was one of the first real concerts I've been to in my life, and they were amazing. And I saw them at the Garden a few years after that, and I saw them play in North Carolina a few years after that. They were very good all three times. That MetLife show was one of the best shows I've ever seen because it was 3 hours long. It was Jersey, so it's always more special for them
Yeah.
to play in front of their home crowd, and they played all the hits, and just the fact that it opened up the stadium, it was a special night.
So
I
these
was gonna
guys
say,
had
what show was better, MetLife or the Garden?
MetLife.
Really?
Garden was great, but MetLife playing in Jersey to open up the stadium, and they I think Garden was like 2.5 hours. This one was 3 hours. They played like all the songs at MetLife.
These guys have done 71 music videos. That has to be some kind of record.
That's the thing. That's
I think only
71.
Weird Al could say he's probably done more.
Probably, yeah. I was surprised that they only have 15 studio albums, right? I'm looking at their discography here. 15 studio albums, 3 live albums, 5 compilation albums, 66 singles. I don't know how many of those charted, but 66 singles. And they only did 1 box set. One.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
So I don't remember what year it was, but there was one year that they played in Munich and decided to live stream the entire show on, I want to say YouTube, but it may have been Twitch. And they live streamed the entire show on their channel, and the numbers were astounding. Obviously, they had there was no chat, but yeah, it was an amazing show. But I do remember they did not play Runaway in that show. Believe it's one of his least favorite songs to play.
Yeah, they don't play anything off the first 2 albums except for Runaway. I don't think they dislike Runaway. I think that's like the only song off the first 2 albums they actually enjoy. Still playing.
Okay.
I don't know what his least favorite to play is now.
I'm also reading here, Taz, that Keep the Faith in 1992, I mean, you guys can speak to this, marked a change in the band's appearance and their sound. What can you guys remember from that time frame? Yeah.
One, they all cut their hair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They dropped the whole glam metal thing. That was kind of phasing out, right?
Became more mature. Mature sound.
Maturity setting in. I think they were really trying to differentiate themselves from
Rat.
the Nirvanas, the Pearl Jams, and all that all the grunge metal stuff, and kind of say, hey, we're still around and we've matured a little bit. And Keeping the Faith was a really good album, but it was I think in a way it was almost a nod back to Billy Joel's song Keeping the Faith, because it was like, yeah, we're still around and we still are that, but we're this too.
Yeah, the album debuted at #1 in the UK and Australia, and it barely cracked the top 5 in the US. And
the US
like,
is always a tougher market.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it was still a platinum selling album. But yeah, I didn't even know that 1992 marked that change for the band.
Hair metal had died, grunge was in, and we were out of the what the heck are we doing 4 years of the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. MTV was changing a lot too, and
yeah,
just all that.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, Colin, what's your favorite video by them?
Ooh, favorite video. I mean, I like the cinematography in It's My Life. I like the cinematography in that one.
Didn't they do one for November Rain? Is that them?
That was Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Okay.
That's the best Guns N' Roses video.
Oh my God. Yeah. My bad. Maybe next time we can do Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Um, I like all of their videos, the ones that I've seen. They were just a lot of fun. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, yeah. Do you have a favorite, Taz?
It's My Life. Like Colin said, the cinematography on that was amazing. And it was one of those that you just knew that they took the effort to make sure that looked exactly how they wanted it. Um, so many of their videos were live videos that it was really weird. When they didn't do a live video, you know, you think about it, You Give Love a Bad Name, the um I'm blanking on titles,
Living on
but
Purpose is a video. Yeah.
Living on a Prayer was a live video. Yeah, so much of their early stuff was live videos. One, they're cheap to make, obviously. You just take stadium footage and splice it together. And but two, in the 90s it was more, really much more about cinematography, showing off that you could have a concept for the video other than just playing live.
Yeah, great videos. At the time, I wasn't listening to a lot of that kind of stuff, but again, MTV just broadened my horizons, and I thank
Right.
MTV for that. And Bon Jovi was always one of those bands. I mean, that's where I'm pretty sure I learned about anthem rock. You know, that kind of big sound, and these guys, did it better than John's voice was just, I mean, at the peak of his powers, there was nobody killing it in rock vocally like him. He was just the man.
He was one of the handful that could do a power ballad and then turn around and do a rocker that just
Absolutely.
blew everyone off their feet.
I don't
So
know,
yeah.
maybe Van Halen comes to mind. I mean,
Van
which,
Halen, Whitesnake, Bon
yeah,
Jovi, you know,
Cinderella, yeah.
there's some elite bands. Unfortunately, not all of them survived the 80s.
Loudon did not.
yep.
um,
Lifestyle will kill you.
right. Well, let's talk about someone a little bit older now. Tom Petty. For me, Tom
Oh,
Petty is very much a unique voice, but also a unique style of rock that very few people appreciate. Colin, your take on Petty's early stuff versus his later stuff?
There's really I don't notice too much of a difference. That's the crazy part to me is that his sound stayed very consistent over the years. That's like obviously Have American Girl to start off, but like his songs like Refugee and Don't Do Me Like That, like I feel like are very similar to Running Down a Dream and Won't Back Down and very similar style to Learn to Fly and Mary Jane's Last Dance. Like I feel like his sound
Stayed
didn't really
consistent.
change a whole lot, but in a good way.
What about when so obviously he had the Heartbreakers from 76 to 87. In 88 he teamed up and made a supergroup, the Traveling Wilburys, um and started more of a solo career. Do you notice a difference between the pre 88 stuff versus the post 88 stuff, maybe when he was doing the Traveling Wilbury stuff?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a difference, maybe a bit like in terms of the twang of the guitar, but other than that, like lyrically,
Very consistent voice.
sonically, pretty consistent.
I
Like
think
it's
he's
funny,
one
like
of
he played the halftime show, and he did 3 of his 4 songs to a Full Moon Fever, and they basically sound like some artists like you their solo stuff doesn't sound like anything like the stuff of their band.
he
But
Right,
sounded
exactly.
just like
those songs sound like songs that he wrote with the Heartbreakers.
I
Yeah.
don't I think he has one of those voices and personalities that probably does not lend itself to variation or to much variation as far as what he can do. Like you said, even in the traveling Wilbury stuff, he is where he is vocally, right?
Right.
Um, I mean, I think I love voices, and I think Tom Petty probably has one of the most unique voices in rock. I mean, you can't
Right.
get any more laid back than Tom Petty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In spite of whatever the rhythm is and the tempo, you're gonna get that. You know,
Laid
Tom
back.
Petty. Yeah, it's just his approach. Thomas Earl Petty, born in
Mhm.
1950.
Died in
Um,
17.
yeah, 27. It died in 2017. How did he die? I don't remember.
Drug overdose. He died of an accidental drug overdose.
Mm.
Yeah. He was born in Florida.
College
Graduated.
Town, College
Yeah,
Town in Florida. Yeah,
Gainesville.
that's right.
They do the tradition in between the third and the fourth quarter there at UF
Mhm.
now, ever since he died.
My
Because he
brother
used to be
Yeah.
went
a
there.
janitor. I think he used to be a janitor that worked at the
Yeah.
football stadium.
Colin, you know how hard it is to get around Gainesville.
Brutal.
What is it about that area that made him want to stay in that area for so long? That, I mean, obviously you're a Gators fan, you're a Jaguars fan, so you know Florida pretty well. What is it that from that area that probably gave him that sound that he had, that just laid back Southern draw sound?
I mean, Leonard Skinner was big in Jacksonville, so you definitely hear the inspiration in a lot of stuff
Right.
with that. So probably that. I mean, Owen Brothers. I mean, there's a lot of great like swamp rock, like southern rock that originates from that Jacksonville area, the 904 area, and
Yeah.
you can definitely hear the influence there with Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister went to school there. Um, my parents live outside of Orlando. Um, I like Florida. Florida is just so different from so many other states. The music in Florida, from Miami, you get a completely different sound, right? With the
Right.
Caribbean influence and our good friend who died not that long ago, Margaritaville, man. So you
Yeah.
get that happening, and then you come up, and then there's what's his name, who sung about the Okeechobee, I think it was. Um,
Well, you have
is it
John
Anderson?
Anderson that
Right,
talks about Seminole Wind.
right.
Um,
And
and
then
yeah, the Everglades have a very different sound than Miami does. And then
and
you
then
come
you
up
move
into
on
the
up.
Orlando area, and it's more
Absolutely.
mainstream.
So I
And
look at him as combining a lot of that, but like you said, definitely that. Um, but it's rock. It's rock and roll, and that's who he was. And I just his with Tom Petty, it's all about the vocals, right, and the songwriting. And
yeah,
that's what when I think about Tom Petty, I think of that friggin' voice. American Girl, Don't Do Me Like That, Refugee, Don't Come Around Here No More.
Yep.
yeah,
Just such a unique vocal talent. He almost reminds me in some ways of Dylan. You know what I mean? It's just this craggy, unpolished, swamp stuff in your face. And I
yeah.
love Tom Petty for that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, in '88, he teams up with George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, and Jeff Lynne. Now, Jeff Lynne also did some engineering work or some production work for Petty and many others as well. What do you feel? What do you guys feel was the? What do you guys feel about that group that was put together? I mean, you got a former Beatle in there. You got the legendary Roy Orbison,
Roy Orbison, yeah.
and then with Dylan and Petty, those vocals. Into the Line is probably my favorite song by them as a group. What do you guys think of the time Petty spent with the Traveling Wilburys?
It was good. It got overshadowed a lot just because his biggest solo breakthrough was right in that same time period. So it
Right.
definitely got overshadowed because, I mean,
And
right around
Orbison's death.
yeah, and Orbison's death, and Orbison had a solo hit at that point. At the same time, George Harrison had a solo hit for the first time in ages. And the same time, Tom Petty had one of the biggest songs of all time in Free Fallin' and had all his hits off
Great
Forward.
song. Great song.
Great song.
Yeah.
So it definitely got overshadowed. Definitely got overshadowed.
Yeah. They did have their time in the sun, though. And these guys toured some. And I love when super talented people, it's just, I guess we all do, when super talented people dig other super talented people and they decide to work together and they give us magic. And although these guys, I think they did, was it 2 albums,
2
maybe
albums.
3?
Yeah.
It was 2
Um,
albums. The second album actually never materialized because of Orbison's death. So they skipped number 2 and went to volume 3.
Yeah, so they did the self-titled album, volume
Volume
1, and
1.
then
Yeah.
Roy died in December, late 80s, and then they came
Like
out
that.
with volume 3 in I think in 1990. Again, you got Dylan, you got Tom Petty on vocals. I mean, what more do you want? You can't get any
And
more
Harrison.
uniquely
I
sounding
mean,
than that.
yeah, and you got George Harrison, too. I mean, 3 unique, very talented
Very.
voices, and then you bring the legend of Roy Orbison in, and it's like, okay, this group is going places, and then of course Orbison passes away, and they actually there's an homage to him in the video for Into the Line. Each of them took a verse for that song, and when they're playing Orbison's verse, they're showing a picture of him, and then they're showing a rocking chair with the guitar in it. And you know, yeah, it's surreal to think that Orbison died in 88, but and he left a huge catalog of music.
Roy Orbison, yeah.
But what's Orbison most known for? Pretty Woman. You know,
Pretty Woman. Then there was this huge hit he had that Linda Ronstadt remade. What's it called? Blue Bayou, maybe.
Mhm.
Didn't he
Maybe.
originally do Blue Bayou? I think it was Roy, wasn't it?
She redid that song.
Yeah,
She did that song. And then You Got It in like '89. I think that's my favorite song by him.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love the sound of the Traveling Wilburys. When you first brought this up, Taz, I went back and was listening to some of their stuff as I was in there in some pain. So I medicated myself and cranked them up and fell asleep on the Traveling Wilburys the other night when we got off live. But again, I love the idea of supergroups and these super talented people coming together. I mean, the 80s we had our share of these groups. What was the group Bang a Gong? Remember that one?
Power Station, yeah. And T
Right.
Rex. There was T Rex. There was Power Station.
Yeah, Power Station.
Yeah. I think T Rex was Bang a Gong. Get it on.
Yeah.
Wham was another kind of super group.
Well, the only thing super in Wham was George Michael.
And then there was 2 people, and one of them was clearly the brains
better of the 2. Yeah.
By the way, have you guys seen that doc on Netflix?
I've not yet. No.
I want to say it's called Wake Me Up. It's great. I mean, it tells the whole Wham story. It's just awesome. I highly recommend it. And while we're on the subject, I know they finally did a doc on the whole "We Are the World" thing.
Yes.
Excellent.
Haven't seen it yet, but I heard great things about it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I saw it the other night.
And it's supposed to be on. Did they do it on just the first one, or did they do it on the second go to.
Just the first one. They did
Okay.
allude to, who was it? Geffen. Was it Geffen? When they first did when the British
Yeah,
guys,
feed the
um,
world.
With Band-Aid, yeah.
right, Band-Aid. So they did talk
Band-Aid.
about that a bit. He was actually there in the studio that night in LA and sort of set the tone for the project because nobody knew what they were doing. I'm not going to give
Right,
it away, but nobody knew what this was really about. And so
right.
they brought him in, and he kind of talked about some statistics as far as the famine and how many kids are dying and all that good stuff. And people in the room were visibly moved. It was so well done. So well done.
Yeah. Um, I want to touch on one more little thing before we move on to our genre time capsule. With w- what artists would you have liked to seen Petty worked with for, say, a duet of one of his songs that he never worked with of his time, of course.
So a contemporary.
Yeah,
I don't know what female artist, if any, he did duets with, but I would love to have seen him get together with maybe what's her name from Heart. Um,
one of the
And
sisters,
Wilson, yeah. And Wilson, yeah.
Ann Wilson. Yeah,
yeah,
that would have been a
um,
cool sound.
yeah. That's a good question. That's a good question.
I'm
What
gonna go a
about
bit
you,
out of,
Colin?
I'm gonna go a bit out of left field with this one. Just the way he plays the guitar and like some of the stuff that he had like in the late 80s, early 90s. I want to see him with Aaron Neville. I think that would have been interesting. That could have been interesting.
That would have
Absolutely,
been a very interesting pairing.
I
Yeah,
see
Yeah,
it. Yep.
I could see
Yep.
it too.
yeah,
Also, I think him with Dolly, because
yeah,
Dolly can morph into whatever she needs to morph into. I mean, she
yeah.
morphed into a friggin' Dallas Cowboy cheerleader and pulled it
So,
off, right?
uh, Colin has some thoughts on that halftime show.
Better than the Jack Harlow Igloo show from 3 hours before.
What was
Uh,
the best show of that day? Would you put that one at the top?
Yeah, I mean there were only three. One of them we didn't see, and it was a DJ show. The other one was Jack Harlow with the igloo barely moving. So Dolly was the best by default.
Yeah. Uh, who is an artist that, other than Taylor Swift, who is an artist that you would like to see do the Super Bowl that maybe hasn't gotten the recognition they deserve to get offered the Super Bowl?
I'll go real quick, Colin, first, because
Yep.
mine's going to be really short. In my exploration of folk music and country music, so I've been opened up to a ton of new artists, to say the least. I personally would like to see, I don't know that they would ever do it, the remaining classic folk artists from the 1960s and 1970s who are still with us, who
Do a
have
folk
just
show.
done exemplary stuff out there. The Joan Baez's of the world, the Joni Mitchells of the world, the uh like even Linda Ronstadt. A lot of her stuff could be considered, or some of her stuff could be considered folk. But I would love to see an homage to
Folk.
um yes, that American music art form, because I just think it's excellent. It's great. I would want to see it all acoustically done, just for the novelty of it. So that's what I would throw out there.
Yeah. I
Colin?
want Dua Lipa to get one. I think she's going to be in the running. In terms of artists that I think will never get a halftime show at all, I don't know who I would think for that one. If I'm for
Linda
artists that will
Ronstadt,
never,
too old.
How long do you think it's going to be before we see another country artist get a halftime show, not counting Swift, who obviously started country?
The Nashville Super Bowl when Nashville happens, I could see them doing
They would
uh,
have to.
not a solo act, but I could see them doing like 3 or 4 different country artists, like Super Bowl 56.
Right.
I think they'll do a solo act. Like I'm not sure there'll be a solo act that's big enough necessarily.
Almost like a
But
repeat of the Super Bowl at the Georgia Dome.
yeah,
I'd
I
love to see Willie.
yeah, yeah. I could see like Luke Combs being a part of that for sure. I could see
Willie Nelson and friends.
Keith Urban. Yeah,
That would
that
be
would be fair.
huge.
Now, Keith Urban has done stuff for the Super Bowl before, right?
He's done some pregame stuff, but
Pre-game stuff. Yeah.
then obviously you get Garth and you do Friends in Low Places to close it all out. I mean,
Yeah. So we touched on it when we were talking about Bon Jovi. Hair metal in general was a small snippet of the 80s, later, mostly the 85 to 89 era. What do you guys remember? What are your guys' thoughts of why hair metal was so successful, and did grunge kill hair metal? Colin?
I think hair metal was so successful for a few reasons. I think one, because with the crazy hairdos, I think it fit perfectly with MTV. I think it was a perfect time capsule that they just looked the part for TV. I think the other thing with hair metal is that it sounded so different in the sense that you had guys hitting notes and singing these anthems that they were never hitting before. I mean, you think of like a lot of the powerful songs by guys back then, like even like the biggest songs, like they wouldn't go above like a regular tenor range, and now they're going to these insanely high notes,
Falsetto.
belting them out, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is something like everyone can sing along to. Like it's just sounds bigger, and guitar solos and everything. It just sounded very different. It fit the MTV style. I think grunge was more. I guess people saw past the hair and they're like, like this is more real. Like hair metal is too phony. Which I don't believe, but I think there's definitely like the phony aspect to it. Like guys are not supposed to hit that note. They're not supposed to have those hairdos. We're gonna like grunge. This is what rock is. This is what rock is, and it was once grunge took over, those two styles were so contrasting and so different they couldn't exist in the same world.
No way. It was. I think it was a generation. It was time. Um, you only get your go in popular culture for a certain period of time. Nothing lasts forever. And this hair stuff came out of the glam metal stuff of the 70s, right?
Hmm.
T-Rex, like we just talked about a little bit, the New York Dolls, even David Bowie, right, were precursors to these guys coming along. I think the sound was it, Taz. It was awesome. The
Right.
guitars and the whole spectacle of it. So not only did you get just great sounding tracks, anthems, great guitar riffs, but you got the whole production value. And again, the whole MTV piece of it was critical, and it had its day.
Yeah.
It did, and then grunge and alternative came along, and it was a more stripped down aesthetic, no makeup. There's no sequence stuff going on. And then generationally, things were shifting. But I
Right.
love going back to glam metal and then hair metal stuff. I love that whole. It's a very interesting time in rock. Motley Crue. I was into Motley Crue heavily. Def Leppard,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To me, the glam metal, like you said, phased into hair metal, and it was so different from the standard top 40, what we were getting on top 40, that you know you have the rock charts that say this was, these were the biggest hits, but but as we alluded to last time, charts changed and it was all about singles, and not everyone wanted to release their single because they didn't want people going and just buying the single. They wanted them to buy the whole album. Uh, do you think that the the Gen Xers that were heavy into the glam metal, the hair metal, do you think they just, like you said, phased out of that and saw beyond it as millennials started becoming teenagers in the 90s?
I think that's what happens. I mean, you just look at rock and roll in general, and nothing stays the same.
Right.
It's constant innovation, constant evolution in styles. Nobody wants to be like their dad or listen to what their dad listened to until 20, 30 years out,
Right.
right? Then there's a resurgence and there's a that old Johnny Cash boy, that was pretty good. So yeah,
Right.
I think the same dynamics are at play here. You have people aging out of certain stuff and people coming of age and grasping on to what they consider to be theirs. This is the new thing.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it was just that generational shift that we see happening in popular culture and music all the time. And of course the purists in country and in all other art forms long for the day of, back in the day when music was music. It's that constant struggle with not wanting to let go of the past and not wanting these Gen Xers or the younger people to have their time in the limelight, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
it, it was their time to say what was popular and what they were going to get behind, and they did. And alternative and grunge really had its day.
It did. Colin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that was pretty well said. I mean, we saw that same thing with disco, and we saw it with boy bands and girl groups in the late '90s, early 2000s. Like, usually get like a 5 year period. Usually get a 5 year period where it's the new thing.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with hair metal is that when you have all these groups and guys singing in falsetto, it's tough to differentiate between a lot of them. It really is
Right.
tough.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
just the
without if you played a random White Snake song, Bon Jovi song, and Def Leppard song to someone that has no clue who any of them sound like, that they're very much the same.
Yeah, like it's tough to differentiate between like with guys that aren't singing in their regular voice. Most guys' falsetto sounds pretty similar when they're trying to do it like that versus the regular chest
Exactly.
voice. So I think
Exactly.
that definitely plays a part in it, where it's like, okay, this is the same song over and
And there
over.
was only, like you said, there was only so much you could do with that stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Um,
you had the power ballads, and the power ballads is really where you could differentiate the different groups.
the voices.
But those stadium anthem songs, they they did all sound very similar.
What was that one? Come on, na, na, na.
Come on,
Come
feel
on,
the noise
feel
is
the
quite
noise.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
that.
it's anthem after anthem. Then Scorpion came through and just blew us away with that one. It was a great era. It was a great time in rock.
And I think that,
Missed
like you
that
said,
time.
their voices just couldn't keep up. You can't, there's
Like
only
playing
so many
football. You can
Barry
only
Gibb.
do it for so long.
it's possible.
Yeah, there's only so many Barry Gibbs out there that can sing falsetto every night
Yeah,
and do it consistently.
right.
Yeah,
And
he
even the
wasn't
very
doing
like it's
any
not like a
damage to
powerful
his.
falsetto. It's not like a powerful one. Like
Exactly.
Right.
He didn't have to come from the gut with that every
yeah,
time,
like Bon Jovi's his voice is shot right now. His
Yeah.
voice is shot. He can't do the songs like he used to.
And none of us are surprised.
No, no, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like the only artist that can sing at a hot like in that high voice still with all that power, that's not like classically trained that like a rock star is Steven Tyler. That's really the only one. But
Steven
that's not
Tyler.
hair metal. That's
How
not.
about how about Perry from Journey? Is he and again, those guys weren't that. I mean, they were rock for sure,
Yeah,
but they weren't like that heavy
they weren't
metal,
hair metal. No,
right?
no, they weren't hair metal at all. No.
Okay, yeah.
No, Journey was more of a pop rock sound,
They would
kind of
probably argue that. They would.
like.
Yeah.
ELO's another one I think of when I think
Electric Light
of
Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
of that. They've got some heavy rock songs, but most of their stuff's more in the to me in the pop genre. Just
Would you classify Van Halen as pop?
no, no, they're
But
rock.
but I could argue that
They have pop
I
songs.
would say with David Lee Roth, it was rock. With Sammy Hagar, was a bit more pop.
They're
Sammy
yeah.
Hagar, he definitely he ain't singing today.
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Not
David Lee
sustainable.
Roth had a very different sound than Sammy did, and you know, leave it to Bowling for Soup to say who's the other guy singing
Yeah.
with Van Halen.
Yeah. Like Panama's rock, but I mean, you listen to like When It's Love. There's no way I could say that's rock.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Right.
and they were one of those groups where they didn't stick hard and tight to that rock genre. They
Right.
Panama songs like Jump,
Yeah.
Poppy for
But
sure.
but I think that was a product. I think a lot of that was product of the MTV era, trying to get songs on MTV and knowing that the hard rock stuff was not going to get on MTV, whereas more the pop rock was.
Mhm.
Demographics, man. What's
Yeah.
selling? You're right. What's
18
MTV
to 30
featuring?
year olds. What are those young adults buying? That's what gets advertised.
Yep.
Unless you're on a kids network or a network devoted to teens, yeah, 18 to 30 is the demographic all those channels want.
Hmm.
And thus that's where the music industry goes, is to appeal to that genre, that age bracket. And there's some that have bucked the trend. I mean, you look at New Kids on the Block, they were all about teenagers. You look at Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, that was all about teenagers. That's why boy bands worked, because they aimed at teenagers.
Yep.
But once they get tired of doing that music, they want to do more serious music. And those teenagers don't want that. They want the fun
Well,
poppy
yeah,
stuff.
it's like we've gone through that phase kind of thing. I think today the opportunity with social media and the various platforms to cultivate your audience a lot more closely, which those guys were doing back then, but not to the degree that you can with technology today. And
Right.
to have a place, a portal that your following can meet up at. I mean, they started that with MySpace, and obviously today there's a better opportunity to bring your fan base with you as you're both aging
Yeah.
and but back then you're right, it's on to the next one. We're not 15 anymore. Bye
Yeah.
bye bye.
Yeah.
It's
uh,
on to the next. It's on to the next group of 5 that we can put together to
yep.
appease the new teenagers.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at. I mean, they were even doing it in the '60s. I mean, '60s and '70s. I mean, the Monkees were an answer to the Beatles.
Uh,
So it's always been that, but I think it's more pronounced today.
yeah. So the one that I'm always shocked by, because now like you see like there's still boy bands every now and then. Like One Direction was big 10 years ago.
Mhm.
BTS, K-pop.
Oasis was
The
it
one, yeah, the one that I'm shocked that hasn't happened yet, with the rise of like country music is bigger now than ever has been before. I am
Right.
shocked that no one has put together a superstar country boy band of teenagers.
Hmm.
I'm actually shocked. Like that seems like no one's done that. Like you get like 5 teenagers or like late teens who can sing country that have the looks. They could be huge.
Yeah, there's an argument there that there would be some seriously broad appeal, but I can imagine the pushback from the purists,
Oh,
man.
oh.
Woo!
Well, I mean, you
Those
see how much
candy
pushback from
asses.
you see how much pushback there is from the purist on Taylor Swift even. I
Oh my
mean,
God,
when she
it's
came out,
outright
they
hate.
loved her.
It's
There's pushback
hate.
for everyone now. Like there was pushback for Luke Combs with Fast Car, even though like Tracy gave him blessing and did it like perfectly and everything. And there's pushback for Florida Georgia Line. They became like one of the biggest country acts of all time. There's pushback for everyone that enters that field at this
I
point.
mean, you've had vocal groups in the past. You've had the Statler Brothers, you've had the Oak Ridge Boys, but
But not teeny
you
boppers.
really don't
Not a country like with choreography and everything, like
Yeah,
right.
not
country
teeny
twang.
boppers.
It's
Because
It's
nothing.
those
never
guys
been
just
that.
stood up there and sang. They didn't, they had a backing band. They had all of that, but they didn't move around.
They were adult
And
oriented also.
Yeah.
But I get what Gator is saying. I mean, a band that is put together like Menudo was, right? In sync to appeal directly to girls
Yeah.
for the
right.
most part.
And they do country
Um,
music. Yeah.
I don't know if that would fly in country. I mean, I just don't know that it would, even though country has changed so much. I'm learning.
The
I
Gen
just,
Zs might accept
With
it, but
TikTok too, like
yeah.
with TikTok, you have a much better chance of
But
getting.
you're right. If you have the right set of guys, the right set of looks, I don't know why it
or
like you
even
said, it
do
gave
like
to TikTok.
do you like I can't ever say the name of them. The boy band you just said,
Yeah.
uh, the one that starts
The
with an
Korean
M.
guys.
Those got those bands were almost like a churn. We're using the band to churn out solo artists. Some
Hmm.
of those bands have been designed like that, and when when the management can't find new guys to replace, then you have the NSYNC and Backstreet Boys situations where it's like, okay, time to go solo, and now the band's dissolved because we don't have anyone to fill those places. Whereas version, some of the Spanish boy bands, they have that constant influx of musicians that can fill those roles. Um, and we've gotten a few big pop um artists out of those style groups. Ricky Martin comes to mind.
Mhm.
And to me, if the US could produce that and keep a band active longer than just 2 or 3 years, even changing the lineup, it would be better for whoever's managing those careers than what happened with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. But yeah, the industry is so cutthroat now that I don't know if a super group or a teen group would work in country music, because teen artists barely work in country music unless they're female.
Right. Although now with TikTok, a lot of teens can get big on TikTok now.
Yeah,
So I think that could definitely play a huge part. But
you're muted.
it's definitely something to. It wouldn't shock me in the next 5 years if someone comes like someone like a Simon Cowell or L.A. Reid or something like that has that breakthrough, manufactures a country boy band, and they take over the world.
It can happen. It can happen. I mean, there's a long and strong tradition of boy bands in R&B, in pop. It hasn't existed so far as, I mean, it hasn't existed in country music, right? But teenagers, Leanne Rhymes, going back to what's her name, the
Tanya
original
Tucker,
Rock Around the Christmas Tree. What's her name?
Really, yeah.
Brenda Lee,
Right. Um,
Tanya Tucker,
right. I mean,
they
there are a ton
all
of
got Taylor Swift, all got starts as teenagers.
yeah. But I agree with you. If there was ever a time to try that experiment with social
now.
media being in its prime right now, maybe somebody will come out with an AI country boy band and see how that goes.
Well, yeah, that would be fun. As always, thank you guys for joining me on this look at music and the NFL. Next month we'll do it all again, and by then we'll have some talk up about the UFL and maybe some spring training news as well. Colin, what do you got coming up on your assortment of channels?
Oh man, I got a lot of stuff coming up. I mean, we got news with everything happening in the NFL. NFL Combine's coming up in 3 weeks, so don't really get a break there.
The draft.
The draft, yeah, we got MLB starting up soon, so I'll be relaunching the baseball channel and the college football channel again. Now that I have more time, so I'm not going to be streaming as many games because there's no games. So it's a weird transition time for me.
We're going to do spring football.
I do spring football. That doesn't start till the last week in March. So
UFL is a spring league, right?
Yeah, it starts March 30th this year. So it's not like, because last year, like the XFL started right away after, but now they merged the leagues. It's just one. And it took too long to get the merger happening. So I've got like this weird, like this week in particular doesn't feel like time. Like it's a weird like phase. Like it doesn't feel like anything's actually happening. It's like just a giant hangover from the Super Bowl, where it's just one continuous day where I'm just sleeping at random points.
I want a Gator 9 NBA channel.
That's going to happen at some point.
Cool.
Long ways away, but that's going to happen at some point. Once I get all the other channels launched up and everything, we'll be good to go there.
And you've got Olympics coming this year too.
Yeah, we got Olympics coming because I'm going to live stream the Olympics. We're going to do some Olympic stories. It's going to be fun.
Very cool.
Busy time for the channel.
Very cool.
PJ, what do you got coming up this week? I know you're still working on your backlog of reactions and everything.
So the most important thing that I have going on in my life was my recent diagnosis of colon cancer. And so obviously that has changed a lot as it relates to what I'm doing on YouTube. I've slowed down with reactions. Some days I feel like shit and I don't feel like doing anything. Other days I'm in pain. I am going to share with my YouTube community here very soon. There's been some news as it relates to my situation. So, Colin, I recently shared with my YouTube family that on the 1st of February, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. I don't know what stage it is yet, because the news that I am going to be sharing with my community is that I recently got the results back from my CT scan, which is a pretty important step. I do have an appointment to meet with a surgeon in San Diego. So today is what, Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday.
So sometime this week, I'll be going on live to kind of update my community on what's going on with me from a health standpoint. So there is some news that I'll be sharing with the community. Other than that, I'm still in the middle of my George Strait set. I've probably done about 4 songs maybe. And I was really enjoying George Strait until I got that diagnosis. So I'm going to continue with George, and then, we'll kind of see where it goes from there for me. But my focus is really shifted to, taking care of that for the most part. So.
Very cool. Well, I've got obviously this video today. Look for the snips and greatest hits part of this over the next few days. And also I join PJ on screen on Friday nights, and anytime he goes live, I try to be on. I try to be on JG9's live streams. I missed last night because I had to work, but I bounce all over the place, trying to get my gaming channel back up. And then I've got some top 5s coming soon. I'm trying to get those recorded. The first one was easy. These next 2 are going to be a little bit more difficult because I'm kind of venturing into areas that I enjoy, but I have to explain more, and I'm not very good at reading script. And Colin has that down,
Yeah.
and I don't.
Colin, do you
So
have a teleprompter?
I do not know.
Okay.
So like I record everything, but the funny thing is that when I do like stuff on camera, because you can see the glare on the thing, I don't use a script when I do stuff on camera.
Yeah.
yeah, your voiceover work is I've heard you editing, thanks to your great community donating a crap ton of money. um, I've heard you editing. I've heard you do those takes. I think that one time you missed 3 words. You
Yeah.
had to repeat 3 words, and I envy you because when I do recordings, I have about 1,000 edits in them, and that was for a 15-minute video. But yeah, I've got top fives, and of course, the Let's Talks will be the pieces will be coming out over the next few weeks, and I don't know what day this will be in March, but look for it on the first or second Tuesday of the month, Tuesday or Wednesday of the month. And until next time, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.